watching Channel Africa Conversations.
Hello and welcome to Channel Africa Conversations. I'm your host, Peter Ndoro. Now, today we bring you the remarkable story of resilience, resistance and reckoning. Ambassador George Nkosinathi Twala is a career diplomat, a freedom fighter and now an author. His newly released memoir, Struggle as a Way of Life, revisits his journey from the dusty streets of Rockville, Soweto to the notorious 10th floor of John Foster Square and later to the diplomatic corridors across the continent. But this is no ordinary political memoir. It's a deeply personal account of trauma, healing and history told through the lens of a 1976 youth who survived gang life, brutal apartheid policing and exile before returning to help shape South Africa's democratic path. Ambassador Twala joins us now to reflect on this powerful, sometimes painful, but always necessary story. Ambassador, thank you so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
No, thank you, Peter, and thank you to our viewers.
So I'm going to start with this book, A Struggle as a Way of Life. What does this phrase mean to you today, nearly 50 years after the 1976 uprising?
Yeah, it means quite a lot, Peter. I did not choose to be in the struggle. It's a struggle that chose me to be in it. It's a very emotional thing, reflection, sitting down and just looking at the path that one has traveled. And I reflect on what it is today that we require from our youth. I'm hoping that some of the youth may look at it, read through it, and actually understand the urgency that an individual within an institution, what impact that person can do. I wish our youth could read through it with all the, it's a story not about heroism, just merely saying what it is that we were faced with, how we reacted to it, and as we always say, quoting Frantz Fanon, that each youth must set out its own mission and fulfill it. I think we did, my generation did. And it did it in spite of all the odds that were staked against us. The question now is, today's generation, what is their mission?
Fascinating. I think we're going to explore that a little bit more, but I want to talk a little bit about these vivid scenes of your early life in Soweto that you describe in your book, your time in gangs, and I'm wondering what turned your path from street survival to political resistance?
It's the socialization in our communities, the problems that we were faced with, problems that said they needed to be resolved. You sit down as a young person walking down the dusty streets, aware of your environment. Our environment, we only read newspapers. They influenced what we saw. They influenced how we saw life and our dreams. Because I grew up, with my own personal circumstance. I enjoyed my youth. Make no mistake about it. We all did the things that we are done by everybody else. We were girlfriends, we were neighbors, we society was just one. We knew each other, and you know your neighbors, etc. We grew up together. And there were dreams that were there. And those dreams had to be fulfilled. But how are we going to fulfill those dreams when odds were basically staked against us? And I mean, the issue of Afrikaans. You know, I sit down here, I never did learn in Afrikaans, etc., as a language. I sometimes ask myself, you know, when I look at the Bangalore-Boer War, yeah, because the Afrikaners were fighting.
Yes, the English.
The English to assert their own language. The Boer republics. And the war took place. They arrived at a situation where there was a truce between them. Not long after the Afrikaners have taken power, guess what do? They do exactly what was done to them, and they bring it to us. So these are issues that I can never understand. I still have got difficulty grappling with them. Is to say, had things turned out differently, what would I have become? Maybe I would not have had the life that I had there, being a gangster, getting involved in the struggle, getting tortured, arrested, detained, and even forced out of the country. It's a terrible past we've had. But
so the story of your grandfather and the forced sale of his farm,
Yes.
Deeply symbolic, happened to so many people, and I think it talked about the era. How did that history of dispossession shape your sense of justice?
No, it made me very angry. I do state that, well, the two, this is my maternal grandfather that you're speaking about, who, I'll come to Meles Mbeki now, who does a very great job asserting himself, learning to farm, having no assistance. And my grandfather never, not for once, did he ever forget that he owned that. He always cried out for his land when he was buttonholed to sell and kicked out. I sympathized with him, but I was a young person and I couldn't understand the conflict and that forced him to abandon his farm. We fast forward and we come to perhaps Meles Mbeki's story. You know, I was looking at some story where he says, you know, we should leave these issues about land because the farmers, African farmer, is doing a very good job, which is very good, actually. But he then says, if land has got to be given back to us, we would not know what to do with it. That's not being honest. I respect Meles Mbeki quite a lot. He's not being honest because, look, the Nationalist Party, when it took over, it expended a lot of resources supporting the African farmer to be able to establish himself. Gave him tractors, gave him easy loans, gave him seeds, ensured that they bring in water canals to assist him. That's all infrastructural things. Clearly, if you're given those options, you will become a successful farmer. But today, with our own land redistribution, government gets that land, gives it to ordinary farmers. Maybe my grandfather would have been given his land too today. I'm still asking for it. I am not getting it. If I get that land, what's going to happen? I'm on my own. I have no money. I have to go to the bank. Nobody will give me a tractor. Even government may not even afford me the extension facilities to be able to do anything on that farm. So I'm set up to fail. So Mbeki is not correct in that. This is what our government must do. I want that land. I want to farm it. But these are the things that shape you as a young man today, as I reflect backwards to what my grandfather may have experienced. The land is taken away from him, which he had worked with his bad things, walking around as kete, what you call it, lantern lab. He farmed it. He became a successful farmer. At the end, what happened to him? He was buttonholed and kicked out of his land. Why would I allow that to happen again? We should get our own government to ensure, through to what was said even in the Freedom Charter, that the land must be given to those who work it. I would want to work it, but for me to be successful, it clearly says government must come in.
So lessons could be learnt with the way that the Afrikaners managed their own destiny.
Absolutely.
1976,
Yes.
It's Youth Month at the moment, and it's commemorative of your generation and what you guys did at a difficult time. Take us inside the organizing moments, the various student councils, SSRCs, and also what became of you in terms of torture at John Foster. What memory from this time might still be really hard for you to revisit? It was a time of change, organizing, hope, but then the consequences were also severe.
Well, from the 13th of June, I never attended that meeting. Did I know of it? I think I had an idea of it, but didn't quite attend it. Can't quite recall what were the issues were. Jesse Mashinini and everybody else, those that were in leadership of SASM at the time, the Memoir, etc., go through, organize and plan, and for a while, they then go out to visit various schools. I'm thinking of Zweli Sizan in this instance, who was a national organizer of SASM. And it's word of mouth, the organization. And for us to have succeeded as a youth at that time to do that entire organization, I still think it was phenomenal.
There's no social media.
No social media, no nothing. And remember, some of the students, their parents are in the police force. And there's an element of secrecy that runs around there. June 16 comes, on that day, I was writing the Afrikaans newspaper, Afrikaans Nation at Mutsi High School. So I did not participate in the June 16 demonstrations. But in the late afternoon, when suddenly, when I knocked off, when we finished our exams, word was about to say things have started happening in Orlando, the shootings, etc. And this is where for me, the individual roles that were played, the roles that were played by individuals, then suddenly comes to the fore. Something that I would wish today's youth could look at. I mean, there's a Sam Zimmer. He's an individual. Takes a photograph of Mbuyiswa picking up Hector Peterson. There's Antoinette on the side crying. He takes a photograph that actually shows what an individual can do within the collective of the media, for argument's sake. So that organization continues until the country is set completely aflame. When I knocked off, it is in the evening when the Snawane beer hall is looted, is attacked. Clearly it was a legitimate target. But the whole organization, we were assisted, I think, by what you may call the lumpen youth, people who were politically not involved in anything, but they were opportunistic in terms of assisting us to ensure our fathers do not end up in the beer hall, but must sit down and pay particular attention to our needs. As by that time, our parents never really bothered about Afrikaans, you know, the frustration that students had. Now, after the whole fracas, suddenly individuals become targeted by the police. The police intervention, both security, we call them special branch at the time, both security and the uniformed police begin to work jointly together to try and squash everything, the whole rebellion. And that is how we actually also get affected. Principally, in this book, I look at 6 months of the reign of President Dan Munsisi, because in December, the entire student leadership is, the leaders actually, are arrested. I'm talking about Supa, Bo Mefi, you name it, Tsietsi is gone, and Khotswe has already left the country. Suddenly, Dan Munsisi arrives in the picture, and he finds, one, the police have succeeded in suppressing issues. Two, there is a directionless student movement that is going forward, and then, without having been briefed by anybody else, then picks up the baton to actually begin going forward. And he did an excellent job. And that's where we become part of his executive. Now, he continues with that charge until he arrives at a position where, as an executive, we're all sitting there, we say, what else should actually happen? One, we can't get students released. The system is refusing to get them in. Two, our parents organized under Committee of 10, you name it, are there. It's a stalemate. We don't know where to go to. Then the idea of the peace plan then arises. Peace plan, an equivalent of what possibly we want to do now with the national dialogue, but peace plan which has already been realized with the CODESA talks. I mean, we speak of this in 1977. CODESA, 14 years later, takes place. That's exactly what we envisaged in terms of having everybody else coming in. So that whole history, for me, is fascinating. Fascinating. So and being a participant thereof is what actually made me actually sit down and write this.
But it was difficult as well. I mean, John Foster, interrogation, solitary confinement, betrayal. How did you make peace with all of this?
Peter, I was bitter. Well, I think I still am bitter. But I'm not going to drink poison and expect those who cause bitterness to die. I mean, Thabo Mbeki actually talks about it when he talks. I quote him in the book there, in his address in the funeral of Alfred Nzo, the then Secretary General. I've made peace with it. difficult as it may be, but I've had to actually come to terms with the fact that we need to build a country. We need to make South Africa a successful place. We did not take up arms because we wanted to. Torture on its own created quite a lot of issues for me, and I guess a lot of other people. I'm but just an individual in this whole trip, you know. I'm just an individual reflecting what happened to a whole range of other people. The others did not survive. Others took a dive. They flew from the 10th floor of John Foster Square to their deaths. I'm talking about Matthew Mabelane, etc., etc. These are all people who died. So I'm saying I'm fortunate that I survived it. But yet, we have a country to build. We have lives to lead. Boy.
Yeah. Talking about that, there's a concept that you mentioned, post-apartheid apartheid. Where has South Africa stayed stuck, do you think? And perhaps where has the country truly broken free? That you have a concept like this, post-apartheid apartheid.
You know, the concept of post-apartheid apartheid, it's more, we're done. Politically, we now have the vote. What do we have to show for that vote? We're still discriminated against. Principally, I have no access to funds to do anything. Not me. When I'm saying me, I'm not talking of myself as an individual. I'm talking about a whole range of people. I'm talking about graduates who may have gone through schools, become microbiologists. Guess what? They then work as hotel receptionists. So we still have not evolved or developed this country to the extent where there can be a role for each and every person. Our schooling system seems not to be talking to what, in fact, there's no correlation between our educational system and even the labor department. So we still are thrown to the side. Why should this continue, Peter? Why should it continue? The country right now is facing massive challenges. Hey, we may end up not exporting beef. Do you know that?
Wow.
Foot and mouth disease is throwing the whole country into a mess. KwaZulu-Natal is just about buckling. The Free State is going to be affected, etc. Don't we have students who have qualified? We do, quite a lot. Naledi Pandor went out to say we need PhDs in the sciences, natural sciences. What has happened to that plan? So that's where the post-apartheid then comes in. For us, it seems we're just busy running around in circles, you know, like headless chickens, as if we have no direction. When the direction is there, why don't we realize all these objectives that we spoke about in terms of the Freedom Charter? I'm not talking about ANC politics here. I am saying everything else, masses of millions of our people participated in framing this issue. It was a bottom-up approach. Why have we not realized that?
Okay, so then let me ask you this. You then become a diplomat, a high commissioner in Rwanda, Zambia. Was there anything that you saw out there that perhaps can help with reflections on South Africa's journey and transition and perhaps ongoing challenges?
The immediate thing that comes to mind is from Zambia. Zambia National Youth Service is, for me, a blueprint to how you get your youth organized. They bring in all these youths, well, that used to happen during the Kaunda era. It's still there even today. It's got its own little shakings and ups and downs, but at the end, the blueprint is there. Bring in all these youth from various areas, not just African youth. Bring them in from everywhere else, from Giani, from Kumbu, from Mpumalanga. Take them out of their comfort zones. Put them in one place. Train them in terms of artisans, etc., etc. I've seen that happen in Zambia. And guess what? The Zambians are equally interested in helping us. But we're not pursuing that. Huh? We are not pursuing that. They bring all these youth, train them. That's what your National Youth Service is. Train them militarily for 6 months or thereabouts, 3 months. Then they give them skills. And when they finish with those skills, they are therefore deployed throughout the country. This is what I would wish to see. I mean, we've got local governments, provincial governments. They've got emergency disaster funds, etc. What's happening in KwaZulu-Natal? You have got floods. We don't have people who can go in and rebuild. We've got youth everywhere else. Busy with nyaupe, busy with alcohol, busy with all sorts of irrelevant issues which are not actually developing us. We should be taking this youth. Yes, Panyasa comes out with this, Maperete or the green flies, It's a good idea, but we still are unable to clamp down on crime that we have. We've got these young people. Why are we not involving them in? Okay, disaster funds are going to disappear now. Stolen. Each and every provincial government has got funds. Local governments have got funds for those. What do we do with those monies? Why don't we direct them to these youth and let them do things, build bridges? I observed a TikTok thing where who this guy is. He's speaking about children walking through a very deep ravine in KwaZulu-Natal. Peter, it's painful. It's painful to see that we still have got children who have got to traverse long distances, dangerous routes, just to access education. Others go into drums to cross rivers. Why don't we take these youths, let them build, let's skill them, build bridges, and do something sensible about it.
This book is also a personal story, healing, reflection. The foreword by your daughters are quite moving. What did you learn about yourself through her eyes as she read your story?
I realized that I still walk up and down, looking over my shoulder. For the first time, I suddenly realized that I haven't really overcome what I went through. Perhaps through the eyes of my daughter, I realized that I needed counseling. But you see, Peter, it's very difficult for an individual like myself to go sit in a chair with a shrink and talk to him. You know what my colleagues are going to say about me? He's losing it, So I had to go through this route of self-exorcism just to take out those demons in me. I visited John Foster Square, walked around, and I healed myself in that process. Just last week, I went to the Johannesburg fort. And I went to my own cell, propelled by my daughter. Went to my cell where I stayed for more than 6 months. Tiny cell, big as this. It's even smaller than the long drop latrines that we use in the rural areas. I still require to be debriefed. I still require, not me alone, I think a whole range of us, even some of the comrades, colleagues I've been with, even those that remained inside the country who were involved in the underground. I think we go about normal. We pretend to be normal.
Does that mean, because sometimes you have a collective pain and a collective healing that's required. Does South Africa need healing?
It does. It does. Peter, we've gone through necklacing. That's traumatic. That is traumatic. We've had Sharpeville. We've had the attacks by the Zulus in Zimhlope, everywhere else. The trauma, Buipatong. It's a very traumatic experience for all of us. How many psychologists do we require who could assist us in this? Maybe that may explain why we have the problems that we do have, where even accountability doesn't seem to be a matter that should make us very angry if you refuse to account for anything. I'm talking about elected leaders in this instance. I mean, I watched an interview from Minister of Education, who's asked, they are the sitters, who is heading them, and she refuses to account. Well, refuses, no. She dodges accountability. What are we expected to do? My son went through this training course. Well, I don't know what they call it, but do mechanic, you know? He still hasn't received the certificate up till now, 3 years after qualifying. Somebody within the sitters must give him the certificate. He doesn't, and my son is stuck. And guess what? He looks at me, Dad, these are your colleagues. Where's my certificate? How to answer that?
So the struggle continues.
No, it should not continue, Peter. That is wrong. It is time for decisive action. It continues to wear. It can't continue. Let's stop, reflect, realize the things that we are supposed to do. It can't continue forever.
So define the mission and act.
And act.
Okay, we're running out of time. So much I would have wanted to ask you. You've called this memoir a mini memoir. And so the question then becomes, are there still chapters of your life still to be told? What might they be?
Perhaps it's just speaking brutally, frankly. Maybe that's what I still need to do. Do I have the guts to do that?
And then,
I'm not sure for that.
And then people to pick up this book. Yes. I know that in many ways this is part of your own healing process and journey. What would you like readers to get out of this book?
I want them to appreciate what it took for us to get the freedom that we now have. And now that we have it, what do we do about it? I'm appealing for agency. on the part especially of the youth to say, let's not allow our country to go to the dogs. I'm extending an appeal even to those who may be non-African to jointly walk along with us and understand. It's not enough to say, ah, man, we've heard this whole story, you know, forget and let's move on. You can't move on. You don't understand what you did to the other side. Do not expect the other side to be the only one that reconciles. Find it in yourself to reconcile to with your own actions. That's all I'm appealing for.
Ambassador Twala, it's been a unique honor and pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. And I hope that this book finds itself in many people's bookshelves, read and experienced. Thank you so much indeed for sharing your time with us.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. And perhaps, Peter, what I omitted to say, I'm intending to launch it on Saturday. I'm working jointly with my school alumni, the Musi High School alumni. 75 rands for each copy sold now will be a contribution to our own alumni, just to raise funds so that we should be able to do something called. It's a small venture on my part to try and assist our own alumni to have funds to do things. We're going to appeal to a lot of people to assist the various school alumni to be able to capacitate us to give back to our youth.
Where will people be able to buy the book?
I'm at the moment, it's going to be loaded. I'm talking to the publisher to put it on Amazon or whatever. Maybe even negotiate with exclusive books. Maybe I should personally go to exclusive book and ask them to distribute it for me.
Ambassador,
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Peter. I really appreciate it. Goodbye.
And so that's how we come to the end of today's edition of Channel Africa Conversations. Thank you very, very much indeed for tuning in. And I hope that you were moved as I was and inspired by the story that we've heard. A personal story, but very representative, I think, of the story of South Africa and many South Africans that fought for democracy in this country. Before I disappear, just a reminder, we really would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts about this conversation and the kind of conversations you'd like us to have more of right here on Channel Africa Conversation. On your screen now, you're going to see the ways that you can contact us, our social media platforms, and you can also comment right now on the platform below what you think and what you'd like to see. Until the next time, from me and the team, thanks so much indeed for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.